the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by the Locked On Big Ten Podcast, because there's simply no better place to get all the news on the Big Ten Conference than with its new host, Mr. Nate Dickinson. Follow the Locked On Big Ten Podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your fine podcast. It is Thursday, August the 5th in the year 2021. And no matter if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast or if you're watching us on YouTube or WKYC.com, I want to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes a part of your day. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at JSteven07. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter as well at Locked On Buckeye. Lineup for today. In segment number 2, we're going to compare my projected defensive starting lineup and a little bit of the offensive line to what we learned from day 1 of fall camp. Segment 3, a little thought I have about conference realignment, a little something advice I would like to relay to everyone listening to today's show. But we begin the show talking about fall camp and some things that we learned during the first day of practice. Yesterday, we heard and we talked about how fall camp is here. You learned about some preseason, like fall type deals that Jay used to do back in the day. Had to look it up yesterday, not looking it up today. I used to always watch The Waterboy when it came on the TNT or the TBS. The Waterboy was a movie that I would watch every single year at the beginning of August, and that was what helped get me started and ready, ramped up for the football season. Even going back at that time when NCAA football on the EA Sports variety was a game that I would buy every time around this year. Every year around this same portion of the year, it was still The Waterboy. That movie, along with Friday Night Lights, but The Waterboy was more of a staple to help me get ready for the upcoming football season. From Ohio State to the Colts to me playing football, I would do that. And for many of you, you have traditions. And with traditions, you look forward to the start of fall camp, that first day. And you want to see, one, who's out there, how are they looking, who is on the starters? How are those newcomers looking? Some of you look at and get your eyeballs fixated on the stars around the names. So many people have different ways to get ready for football. And once you start practice, like the Buckeyes did just yesterday, there are things you can learn about the players and about the team. I'm going to run through some of these very quickly. There are some I'm going to leave for segment number 2. We're talking about the projections for starting O-line and starting defense. One thing we learned, it's unfortunate, but Tyler Friday is expected to miss most of the upcoming season due to an injury. Mayan Williams was in front of Master Teague during running back drill lines, so that was one thing you always look to see. What is the order? What is the place of each running back? Mayan Williams, I've already said, I think Mayan Williams or Marcus Crowley will get the bulk of the carries throughout the portion of the season. I had stated that I think Teague will be RB1 game 1. I could be wrong. It could be Mayan Williams or Marcus Crowley. I will not be upset whatever decision Tony Alford makes as far as Williams or Crowley, because I think those two guys are the best running backs in the room. Cam Babb was the only injured player working off the field. Gee Scott Jr. was working with the tight ends. DeMario McCall is still working with the cornerbacks. Palais Naoti IV from the USC transfer, Haskell Garrett's cousin, and Steele Chambers were practicing with the linebackers. Steele Chambers is someone that played both ways in high school, and even Ryan Day stated Chambers is going to decide where he plays. He can play running back or linebacker. That's how talented that he is. But ultimately, it is still Chambers' decision what side of the ball he plays, what position he plays. And I will not be upset if he plays either one. It's going to be, just be transparent with you. If he plays running back, okay. If he plays linebacker, go for it. He is that talented. He is that skilled to play either one. Palaie Gaoteote was at practice, but his waiver from the NCAA has not been given. He transferred, made a transfer official, and announced it after the deadline you could get to have immediate eligibility to play immediately in the upcoming season. I believe that deadline was in the beginning of July. The date I think of is July 1st. That could be incorrect. But Palaie Gaoteote was at practice. Ryan Day states that an answer may come in another week or so in regards to the waiver and him being eligible to play the football this year at the Ohio State University. I firmly believe that Palaie Gaoteote, being at the linebacker position, 6'2", 250 pounds, getting away from USC, not that USC is a bad program, but going to Ohio State and transferring up. Imagine that. USC to Ohio State, you're transferring up, not just in success, but in coaching and in recent success, long-term success. Ohio State's had more success over the past 20 years than USC. Let that sink in for you. Because when I was a youngster, I thought USC and what they had going was going to be a trend. However, that's not the case. Ohio State has had more success over the past 20 years, been to more national championship games, won more national championships than USC in that span as well. Palaie Gaoteote, I believe he made the right decision to come to the Ohio State University. Last but not least, Ryan Day stated that Ohio State, the football team, is over 90% when it comes to the vaccination rate. Many people of you may be listening. You may be saying, I'm curious. The NCAA recently announced some new COVID guidelines for vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Really interesting that it comes out now, though they would have gone the NFL route to announce it a few weeks ago like the NFL did. But here we are. Practices started. We got a few things that we have learned so far, a few notes from the first day of camp. Notice I didn't say much about the quarterback position. I have already stated who I think it will start, CJ Stroud, and then I think it'll be Kyle McCord, and then I think it'll be Jack Miller III, and then I think it'll be Quinn Ewers. I understand he just transferred in. I understand he just announced he's coming to school, but he's not on campus yet. He won't be at practice until the middle of preseason camp. I don't think he's going to start. I don't think he'll get much playing time, if any at all, this season. That's what we've learned so far, a portion of it. What else have we learned? Stick around to find out. But first, check this out. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning? Is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? And wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find a solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. If this is your first time listening or watching Locked On Buckeyes, I want to say welcome. Or if it's your first time in a long time, I want to say welcome back. Make sure you subscribe, no matter if you're an audio listener on the Odyssey app, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your fine podcasts. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you search Locked On Buckeyes. Subscribe there to help the show keep growing and growing and growing. You listening or watching, you guys have done a phenomenal job with the show and helping it grow. The downloads have been amazing. YouTube is growing at a good rate. It can go faster. It can get bigger with the help of you. So make sure you subscribe, leave 5-star reviews, comments on the YouTube, so more people know about Locked On Buckeyes and more people can enjoy the same podcast you enjoy 5 days a week. So I believe it was March or April maybe even mid-February. This is timestamped on my phone. Let me check this very, very quickly. So it was April 16th. I put the final touches and additions to the projected depth chart for the fall. And this is a little fun that I like to have as far as offense, defense, guessing game, projections. Who do I think will be starting? Who do I think will be backups? We're sports fans. We compete. I'm a podcast host. I like to analyze, and I want to see how I analyze something. Am I correct? If I'm correct, good. I can learn from that. If I'm incorrect, what did I falter? What did I fail? Was it my eyeballs? Was it my own personal beliefs and thoughts about the position? Do I need to take personal things out and just use what I analyze and observe? These are things that we can do to get better, and I like to compete. I also like to compare and contrast. These are things that we love to do as sports fans. So when I can do things like this and really put myself to the test to say, April 16th, beginning to the middle of April, we're projecting things for the offense, for the defense. Knowing the first game was not until September the 2nd, this is a fun little test. On day one, offensive line specific, we'll go to the defense here in a second. On day one of fall camp, who do you think was I ain't gonna say who do you think? I'm just gonna go to say what I had. So on day one, or my projections last year for who was going to be starting offensive line, most of these are set in stone. Some of them you may say, Jay, you're crazy. Some of them you may say, I know exactly who it's going to be. Let's compare and contrast right now. Starting offensive line as projected by myself back in April: left tackle Fair Mumford, left guard Matt Jones, center Harry Miller, right guard Paris Johnson Jr., and then right tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere. 4 of the 5 were in their right position on day one of camp. The one that, as I projected back in April, that was incorrect as far as camp goes, not game one. So Chase has some time to decide to figure out if he's accurate or not. Starting left guard with the first team offense yesterday was second-year player Josh Fryer. I didn't even have him on my list. Honestly, backup left guard, I had Donovan Jackson. Backup center, I had Luke Whippler. Didn't even have Fryer on my list. Now, that's me. Am I crazy? My projections wrong? These are still projections, and honestly, it's still September 2nd, so your boy can still be right. But that's how things are right now. He is battling Josh Frere. He's battling with Matt Jones and Luke Whippler for that starting left guard spot. I know what we saw from Harry Miller last year. I understand how Harry Miller played last year. I understand that he moved from center to the left guard position. And in theory, you might say that's easy. That's nothing. Going from the center, middle of the offensive line to the left guard position, that is absolutely nothing. As someone that played the center position in high school and then got moved to left guard after an injury to my right hand, and the coach said, we're going to keep you on the offensive line, but we're going to move you from center to left guard. The footwork is different. Your position on the line is different. Your calls are different. Your steps are going to be somewhat. Your steps are going to be different as well. You're working with a different portion of the line. You may get more in space instead of right there in the smack dab middle of things. Things are different. And we saw that last year with Harry Miller going to the left guard position from center. When he got put to center, notice he didn't really practice center that week at practice because of things that were going on with the COVID. So all of a sudden, those messed up snaps that we saw, those bad snaps going over Justin Fields' head, the penalties that he had, hey, remember, when you don't get much practice, when you're going from a new position back to your original, the footwork is different. The calls are different. You're more looked at to control the offensive line and what's being done. Yeah, I think him going back to center will be the best thing for him, best for the offensive line. Josh Fryer, first team starting offensive guard, left guard yesterday, not Matt Jones like I have predicted. Now, this is also going to come from an Ohio State beat writer, Colin Hosshill, who I'm going to be trying to get back on the show here very, very quickly. He put a tweet out that stated, the first team defense as he saw it while at practice. I'm going to run through my projections very quickly on purpose, and then we'll go to see what he said. One defensive end, Tyreek Smith. The other, Zach Harrison. Defensive tackle, Haskell Garrett. Nose tackle, Teron Vincent. Linebacker, this is a 4-3, not a 3-4, not a 4-2-5 with a bullet. So I'm already going to be wrong. Taraj Mitchell, Dallas Gant, Kevon Pope or Mitchell and Pope were on the outside linebacker positions. Gant is a middle linebacker. Sevyn Banks, Tyreek Johnson are the corners. Marcus Williamson, safety, and then Josh Proctor, safety as well. I actually had Marcus Williamson as a cornerback, but he could also be a safety. Here's the first team defense as it was seen from a writer that was at practice for Ohio State. Colin House-Hill works for 11warriors.com. Defensive ends, Harrison and Smith, same. Defensive tackles, Vincent and Garrett, same. Linebacker, Mitchell, Simon. I've grown more on Simon towards the summer went on. Didn't have it back then. The bullet, Ronnie Hickman, was there. Not Lathan Ransom, as many fans would have thought would be in that position. No, this is camp, not who's starting week number 1. This is a good projection. Cornerbacks, Brown and Banks. Safety, Williamson and Proctor. So not bad at all. A little projection back then, not accurate, but you see where things are going. Josh Fryer, left guard, starting offensive line on first day of practice. Harrison, Vincent, Smith, Garrett, Mitchell, Simon, Hickman, Brown, Banks, Williamson, and Proctor were the starting defense, first team defense, the first day of fall camp. It's a nice takeaway. These are things that we can take away from this. I saw a clip in a video of Garrett Wilson making a phenomenal diving catch where he quickly beat the defender. Forget who was guarding him at the time. But all of a sudden, you see him jump out, dive, catch it with 2 hands, bring that ball in. I know Chris Olave gets a lot of attention. I understand Olave has been doing some phenomenal things while he's been at the Ohio State University. But your boy is excited, equally as excited or more excited for Garrett Wilson and the possibility of seeing what he will do this year at the Ohio State University. Day 2 of practice is today. We'll do some more recapping tomorrow, do some more recapping and discussion from practice next week. Got some guests lined up for next week as well. Some more NFL draft eligible talk next week. Going to try and get a guy to come on to talk D linemen. We'll hit some more Quinn Ewers topics and thoughts from a different angle next week as well. Maybe something you guys have not thought about, but we'll try to do different angles as far as Ewers, fall camp practice, and NFL draft leading up to the start of the season on September the 2nd. Siri, I don't know what you said, but I put you on mute very quickly. What we're also going to do very quickly is go on and continue this show. But before we continue this show and talk more about conference realignment, check this out. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at BetOnline. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NHL, and all your UFC/MMA action. Before the next pitch, head over to betonline.ag on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their runs to the playoffs. Head to betonline.ag on your laptop or mobile device to sign up today. And when you do, make sure you use that friendly promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sports book experts. And as we roll on and continue today's episode here of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Coming up tomorrow, already have a guest lined up. It is Mr. Scott Agnes. He covers the Indiana Pacers for the Fieldhouse Files. We'll get his initial reaction, what he learned from talking to Dwayne Washington Jr., and how he fits into the Pacers organization, all coming tomorrow right here on Locked On Buckeyes. With conference realignment, there are going to be numerous thoughts, numerous suggestions, numerous jokes you might want to get off, numerous things you might want to tweet. There are things that will happen that will come into your mind that will be said. Some are fact, some are fiction, some are always fiction, some are something people said or wrote to get a reaction. Some of them are false just because people thought they had good sources when they don't. Some things were facted all the time, And there are things going on right now that nobody knows about as far as conference realignment goes. Ohio State, not Ohio State, the Big Ten and Kansas. Will that happen? We'll have to wait and see. Will the Big Ten go after a school like West Virginia? Will the Big Ten go after a school like Iowa State? Will the Big Ten go after a school like Oklahoma State down in Big 12 country? We will have to wait and see. Will the Big Ten go after a school like Kentucky or Cincinnati or Louisville? Yes, they are in all different conferences. I think Cincinnati and Louisville are in this. No, they're not. All three are in different conferences. Forgot Louisville was not there anymore, the previous conference that they were in. Different conferences. What will the Big Ten do as far as will they add a 15th, a 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th member? Will they go to California? Will they go all the way to the East Coast? They mentioned West Virginia. Will they go up more into that eastern portion, Jersey area over there by Rutgers? We will have to wait and see. But one thing to remember, there are things going on right now when it comes to conference realignment. Ohio State Buckeyes' future is not really – I don't know if they're going to move a conference. I don't know if they're going to go independent in only the football. I don't expect them to go independent in every single sport. That's not what you do in college football or in collegiate athletics. The only sport I know people are independent in is the football. You have the Notre Dame. You have some of your naval academies that are Army and Navy. Believe they're independents. I know at one point Idaho was an independent. Old Dominion was an independent. Just going. I recently was playing NCAA Football 14, realigning the conferences, and I realized, wow, 2013 season. This is how things looked. A lot different than it is right now. You're going to see things on social media. We're going to read articles about things. We're going to watch or listen to podcasts where people are going to make statements, bold statements. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. This is a very fluid situation, and we're probably going to see a lot of news coming out day after day after day after day after day. This is how these things work. This is how the conference realignment game works. A lot of people are going to say Greg Sankey was proactive in getting Oklahoma and Texas, even though I do believe Oklahoma and Texas reached out to him. But there may be a report that comes out and says, hey, Greg Sankey, the rich get richer. You guys are trying to be the biggest, baddest conference in college football. Yeah, absolutely. But in revenue-wise, the 14-member institutions in the Big Ten, due to the 51%, 49% ownership split between Fox, 51%, 49% for the Big Ten, the ownership split for the Big Ten Network, that's the biggest thing I think that helps revenue. The SEC, I looked this up recently, it's split up between 80% ESPN and 20% the Hearst Company or Hearst Group. The SEC doesn't even own their own network. Now, I don't remember the ACC's ownership split. I forget the Texas Longhorn network ownership split. But when you own your own network, things are going to be a whole lot different. And you might see some schools have interest in the Big Ten simply because of the ownership split in the Big Ten network that's there. When the SEC is not the same way. We're going to see a lot of things happen over the next few weeks, over the next coming months. Don't lose your mind. It's expected. If Twitter was as rampant and as crazy as it is now, back in the 2010, 2011, 2012 conference realignment situation, you will remember our phone getting blown up. Notification after notification after notification. These things happen. Conference realignment is going to come quick, fast, and in a hurry. You're going to get so much news it might bog down your mind. Brace yourself. This is not over yet. I expect more of this down the road. Do I think this will impact the 12-team playoff proposal that's been there? I absolutely do. Would I be shocked if they went from 12 to 16 teams with the conference realignment as things go and wait until 2025 for the new format to go into place? I would not be shocked. Would I be shocked if there was a different than 12-team format or different configuration still happening in 2023, even though the contract is up in 2025? I would not be shocked there either. Conference realignment is coming in crazy, coming in hot, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Embrace yourself. We're going to get a lot of news before the season and a lot of news probably during the season as well. Guys, this has been fun. Be back tomorrow for one more day. My brother's getting married tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow. Today's record this on Wednesday, Thursday's episode. My brother's getting married tomorrow. Still planning to do an episode for you guys to keep you up to date with what's going on with Ohio State football practice. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jsteven07. Follow the podcast at Locked on Buckeye. Before we go anywhere, guys, there's one thing we all love to do, well, a lot of people love to do, which is bet on the Ohio State Buckeyes, and it doesn't have to be a guessing game. If you listen to the new Locked on Bets podcast, hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling, get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked on Bets podcast, brought to you by betonline.ag, wherever you get your fine podcast.